particular plant. This is Anisodontia. And if you look in there, you can see that we've got these tiny stems. They're not very big. And there's 5 or 6 plants in there. The reason I know that they've taken is that there's fresh new growth at the top of all the plants. Down here we have the leaves that it was taken with, but it's these new leaves here that indicate to me that the plant is ready to go. Very important trick. To check the true establishment of a plant, if you carefully thread your hands through the cuttings, turn it upside down, and I've already felt this, the root ball is dropped, but if you just pinch it on each side, it will release. And you can lift this up carefully, and you can see that we've got nice roots on all sides of the plant. So this plant is ready to pot on. So I want to put these plants in their own individual pots. Obviously these have been pre-filled. It has not been pushed down. I just gently, in fact I'll even show that to you. So here we have our pile of soil. Now this is just normal growing medium, nothing special. I haven't added anything to it. The perlite in here helps it have good drainage and good oxygen capacity, but all I do is scoop it in and shake it. I don't firm it down. I don't think that it's necessary. So that's what we're going to put our plant into. We want the finish height to be somewhere about there. That means that when we add water to it, the water can fill the top of the pot, drain down. If we have it filled like this, we add water to it, and that dome shape means that the water will run off. So we don't want that. So that will settle as I start to take these cuttings, as I start to pot on these cuttings. So let's just put this here. I showed you how to invert this, and that's always a good starting point. What we want to do is now just gently tease this apart. Now you might think he's being way too rough. I just want the plants to grow. I'm not going to treat them with kid gloves, but as they start to come apart, you want to make sure that each of them has got roots of their own. So here's our first winner. Now that is a little bit of root fragment that broke off, no big deal. Now look at the roots on that. Now don't wave it around because those roots could snap and fall off. I like to use this. I make myself a little hole, and then that is now in the center of the pot. Backfill it, just the tip of the finger. A bit of a tap on the sides, and you can see that the internal height of the compost is a little bit lower. And there's our plant. Center of the pot. That's the way to do it. And then always put a label in it as to what it is and the date. April 28th. And it's on. Anisodontia. So on this next one, we've now got to go back into our pile, and these are all quite close. And I'm putting the lightest of pressure just to tease them apart. You see how slow that is? And this also means that we are not breaking lots of roots. Now that doesn't have many roots, but I fully expect it to grow. There we go. I'm holding it with my hand upright because I don't want it leaning. So that one's not quite in the center of the pot, but I'm not going to mess around with it. Important to remember where your cuttings are, and you really should start from left to right or right to left. Cuttings in one spot, pot in the other, and you are good to go with a bit of production. Now let's just look at this closely. You can see that we've got all the roots from here down. Here's our bare stem. You don't really want to have this at the top of the compost, and you don't want to bury it that deep that it's way up there. It's somewhere in the middle, enough to hold it upright. Now this one's got less roots, so sometimes that is all that is needed. And when I press down, I'm pressing down on the edge. I'm not really getting in there and overly squashing this area. A little bit, but not a lot. So that one is now again in the center. Now this is a very bushy plant. When it grows, it'll grow shoots from here and from in there, and this whole thing will emerge like this. It doesn't necessarily grow with a central stem. Now let's show you another way to pot things up. As you get better at this, you'll get more familiar with the process and the handling. You can do this. Half fill a pot, put the plant in. You see that's at the right level. Hold it with your hand at the right level, and all those roots are nicely spread out. And then with the other hand, you can fill it. Now the temptation is to really get in there and press down hard in this area. If you do that, you'll snap off a lot of those roots. The next 24 hours, these will be in a tray, and they'll have some water. They'll be in a greenhouse, and all they have to do is just get those roots to start growing out a little bit, and the whole plant will perk up. So freshly potted up cuttings can look a little bit sad. That's just the way of it. That's how it works. Now, this one doesn't have much. I fully expect that to grow. Fully expect that to grow. I suppose the real key is I took, I think, 8 cuttings. I had 2 that I know died, and I've got 6 cuttings that I'm potting on. Now, of those 6 cuttings, if I get 4 of them to live, I'll be very happy. I'm not going to lament over the failure of a few cuttings. And it's difficult because you feel like they're your babies. They're your special little plants that you grew. But remember, we just want healthy, vibrant plants. I'm not going to nurse a sick plant when I don't need to. So I've got my 6 cuttings, and I'm very happy with the 6 that I've got. I think you'll be very happy with the success rate of these, and of course you'll get to see them grow. So there's our 6 plants, dated, labeled. Now look at that one. If you remember early on, I said make sure that they don't slant. They should be going straight upright. But rather than get in there, we're going to see how that one grows. Now, this is a super trick. Just a normal water sprayer. Nothing about this that's difficult. If you spray the foliage, it stops them drying out. But the real trick is to try and spray underneath. That really does stop them from drying out. Now, something that I do to all my cuttings, there's lots of different types. This is Neptune's Harvest. I've used this for a few years now with great results. It's not super strong, but it makes the plants get out of this very tender stage of being a fresh cutting, which I like. You have to give it a shake. And all I do is pour a little bit into my spray bottle, put the lid back on, give it a shake. Now, I've got a nice weak solution there of this feed. Put my finger over the end and I'm just dribbling it. And this is where those new roots that have just been disturbed, significantly disturbed, now get water that they need, and they also get a little bit of food. It's very dilute. But you see how readily the water is absorbing, the compost is absorbing the water because it's not overly compacted. Now those plants are now ready for the greenhouse, and look at this one. That's a bit wayward. There. 6 Anisodontia cuttings. Now these are the Anisodontia a week later. And what I want to show you is it's not uncommon to have a few of the cuttings drop a few leaves and go a little bit yellow. They've gone through shock if you think about it, but don't let that put you off. What we want to see is the continuation of little shoots like this one. These new shoots indicate that the plant is thriving. So that would be 6 out of 6. Nothing wrong there. There are a few plants that I also took cuttings of. This is an Impatian or Impatian. This is Impatian's tinctora. Big white flowers with a red stripe across them. And these were taken back in January. And we've got the nice big thick root ball. Nothing wrong with that. Now, as with propagation, you could then trim this off and start another cutting and do the same over here. And you have more plants than you can possibly imagine. So here we are in early May, and in a couple of weeks this can be planted out. So this cutting was taken earlier this year. And this is a plant called Rowellia. A little slower to get going, but another plant that will grow nicely and have blue flowers. So I'm looking forward to that. So have heart when you start to grow your plants. It's a patience and a careful planning of what you want, what you grow, give them what they need, and you too can grow plants.